Welcome back. Health authorities in Congo are tackling an outbreak of measles in the town of Pointe-Noire, where 800 cases have been reported and 40 deaths registered. For several months now, the area has been at the heart of a measles epidemic. Medical workers are confronted with a worrying state of affairs as families are opting for traditional remedies instead of visiting health centers. As we hear in this report, an end to the epidemic is far from near.
At the medical centre in Pointe-Noire, a large dose of patience is needed. Mothers come to vaccinate their children against measles, and despite the musical entertainment, the tension is palpable. For several months, Pointe-Noire has been at the heart of a measles epidemic sweeping the region.
We are asking the population to fully embrace this vaccination program designed to protect children, who we are very concerned for.
Health authorities have intensified their vaccination program. Since June, 800 cases of measles have been detected and 40 deaths registered.
Whether it's polio or measles, both illnesses can be treated with vaccinations. We've noticed more people are getting ill because there's been a decrease in the number of vaccinations. That's why there are more cases of measles.
It's a worrying state of affairs. During the previous vaccination campaign a few months ago, the death toll was kept below 5%. Now that figure's on the rise. This is partly because of cultural beliefs. Many families are opting for traditional remedies over visiting a medical centre.
I've tried to persuade mothers to have their children vaccinated. That's part of my job. I try to help them do the right thing because their children's health is at stake.
An end to the epidemic isn't yet in sight. For now, medical authorities are working flat out with communities to try to keep it contained.
Police in Egypt have clashed with protesters in the capital, Cairo, and the city of Alexandria. Demonstrators have been showing their disapproval of ministerial changes announced last Thursday by the Interim Military Council. And in Gabon, an engineer and a former government advisor is on a hunger strike. He started his non-violent protest on the 5th of July, demanding the closure of the French military base in Gabon and the cancellation of the country's foreign debt. For those and other stories, return to this news roundup.
Egyptian troops intervened to clear protesters in Alexandria. Security forces prevented marchers from approaching government buildings in the city and in Cairo. Demonstrators have been showing their disapproval of ministerial changes announced last Thursday by the Interim Military Council. The opposition wants the pace of reform to be speeded up, as well as the removal of officials linked with the ousted Mubarak regime. Brazzaville is the scene for a big political meeting of the ruling Congolese Labour Party. It could be the last time the event is held in this form. President Denis Sassou Nguesso plans to unite the main groups into a single movement in time for parliamentary elections next year. Last week, opposition parties complained they were not being consulted about plans for the 2012 elections, including revision of the voters' lists. In Gabon, hunger striker Roland Désiré Abba is entering the 10th day of his protest. Abba, who's an engineer and former government advisor, started his non-violent protest at Independence Square in Libreville on July 14th, France's National Day. He's demanding the closure of the French army base in his country, as well as the cancellation of the country's foreign debt.
Supporters and opponents of the Senegalese President Abdoulaye Wade have taken again to the streets of Dakar. The demonstration centered on a controversial reform of 2012 presidential election rules. A coalition of oppositions and civil society groups seeking to prevent President Wade from seeking a third term, which they say is too dangerous for Senegal. But as we hear in this report, President Wade's PDS party also held a rally to defend its proposition.
Supporters and opponents of Senegalese President Abdoulaye Wade came out in force on Saturday in Dakar. The demonstration centered around a controversial reform. 1 month ago, a coalition of opposition parties and civil society succeeded in forcing the government to withdraw a proposition to reform the 2012 presidential elections. The government backed down after unprecedented protests. The opposition has even created a movement that aims to keep President Wade from seeking a third term. It says the danger is too great for Senegal and could push it to the brink of revolution.
A third term is a risk. It's a danger. It's the same kind of risk that Côte d'Ivoire experienced. That was the cause of coups d'etats like the one in Niger. It's the risk of instability that you find in Guinea. When you put together the president's age and the possibility of illness, you have an explosive cocktail.
President Wade's Senegalese Democratic Party said it was surprised by the number of Senegalese who came out to protest the reform. It decided to hold a major meeting on Saturday to defend its proposition.
The Senegalese Democratic Party called for a demonstration to surround, and I mean surround, President Wade as a candidate in the next election until he's back in the presidential palace in 2012. And we'll do everything to be sure that the law is observed.
The demonstrations, which are being held outside the city center, will in the coming hours give a sense of what forces are now at play in the politics of Senegal.
And before we end this edition of the news, a recap of the top stories. A fleet of new ferries was on Saturday commissioned by the President as part of events marking this year's July 22nd anniversary celebrations. Gambian accredited diplomats abroad have converged on Banjul to deliberate on a draft foreign service strategy document of the Gambia government. Demonstrations have resurged in the streets of Dakar as a coalition of opposition and civil society groups in Senegal warned President Abdoulaye Wade against seeking a third presidential term. And Congolese officials are battling with an outbreak of measles in the country, where residents show a preference of traditional healing over hospital treatment. And with that, we come to the end of the news. Thanks for watching and have a nice day.
Leadership is a contract. People vote for you because they expect you to stand for them and improve their living conditions. How can I satisfy every Gambian? Left to me alone, if I had the power to make sure that no Gambian becomes sick or goes hungry or is poor, I would have given it to every Gambian, irrespective of whether they like me or not. That's my wish for the Gambian.